Hello and welcome to Jessie Bar Book Club, the only book club where we don't always talk about books. But today we are. We are comparing Illyrio Mopatis from A Song of Ice and Fire to what I feel was George R.R. Martin's inspiration when creating this character, Robert of Artois from the Accursed King series. So let's get started. Robert of Artois, Lord of Conch, is definitely the inspiration for the great cheesemonger, the merchant prince that is Illyrio Mopatis. Robert is a conspirator and a courtier trying to regain lands he believes are rightfully his through his mother's bloodline. These properties are now in possession of the crown in a roundabout way, and Robert of Artois sets up plot after plot trying to get them back, not caring who he hurts in the process. Which leads into my theory that Illyrio Mopatis is a Blackfyre trying to regain a stolen throne, as Illyrio and Varys are both Blackfyres from the female line. At least that's my opinion. The first similarity came to me when reading The Poisoned Crown, where Philip, Count of Poitiers, accuses Robert of Artois of paying for war with his own coin, but not his own flesh, and that really reminded me of the fact Illyrio is paying the Golden Company for Young Griff's war, but not putting himself in harm's way. The second scene that brought these similarities into focus for me was in the Great Council to decide the regency in the book The Royal Succession. This also reminded me of Illyrio, as it is made clear in this scene that Robert of Artois is on nobody's side and in nobody's court faction. He is his own person, working under his own steam, and all the lords and ladies of France have no idea what angle he is playing. He is playing this game for himself with his own goal in mind. And doesn't that remind you a lot of a certain eunuch in King's Landing who nobody can quite pin down as to what he wants? We all know Illyrio and Varys are working together. I have a whole video on explaining their family connection, so if you want more clarity on that subject, go and watch this. But for the moment, Illyrio and Robert of Artois are playing their own game with their own goal in mind, and Illyrio just happens to be using Varys. When Robert of Artois surrenders to Philip the Regent, after Robert takes back most of the county he considers his birthright, only to be outfoxed and thrown in prison, gave me a real sense of something that might happen to Young Griff, who I believe is Illyrio's son. Especially the scene where Robert was so confident he went to meet Philip alone, and while they were travelling, Philip and Robert rode side by side talking, and Robert thought that Philip was getting to like him. He couldn't possibly hurt him, and then, just as Robert was getting confident, he was thrown in prison. I could see something similar happening with Young Griff when he and Daenerys travel together. After Young Griff surrenders to Daenerys' dragons, I can see a scene where Young Griff thinks Dany is getting to like him. Perhaps there will be a marriage offer after all. Then for Daenerys simply to throw Young Griff in jail or kill him. I know this scene would affect Illyrio's son, not him, but I believe the comparison stands. Robert of Artois' army is also in mismatched armor, and they raped and pillaged as they went. They could be considered sellswords, something akin to the Golden Company, perhaps. The opening scene of The She-Wolf, Robert of Artois admits that he is playing the long game when it comes to getting his county back from his Aunt Maud. And doesn't that strike you as something Illyrio would do or say? Isn't he playing the long game after all with Young Griff? And remember Illyrio's conversations with Tyrion? Then in The Lily and the Lion, Robert of Artois becomes a kingmaker, securing the throne for his brother-in-law, Philip VI of France, the first Valois king. That sounds like Illyrio Mopatis to me. As I have previously mentioned in videos, I believe Illyrio and Varys are brothers-in-law, but they have come together to focus their efforts on their Blackfyre claim with Illyrio's son. This is a unique king-making opportunity. Then there is Robert of Artois' nostalgia for his youth once he turns 40. Of course, this is a common thing, but Robert wishes he could still walk the streets and fight and whore with the lowest common denominator. That struck me as closely resembling a similar conversation that was discussed between Illyrio and Tyrion during their travels together, when Illyrio recounts his youth in Bravos. When Robert of Artois is thrown out of France for forging documents, it made me think, how did Illyrio end up in Pentos? He lived in Bravos. Was he thrown out of Bravos for some reason? Perhaps a reason involving forgery? Leave me a comment with your thoughts on that subject. It's something I have been wondering on for a while. Could it maybe involve some stolen dragon eggs? There is also a part in The Lily and the Lion that interested me. There is character development for Robert of Artois. While Robert is in exile in England, he develops interests in magic and the dark arts, and that struck me as very similar to Illyrio's exile from Westeros. He wants to invoke magic. He does this by giving dragon eggs to Daenerys and hoping they will hatch. Robert of Artois is, in my opinion, the main protagonist in the Accursed King series, and Robert's death in The Lily and the Lion is very climactic, and that is something I think we can't attribute to Illyrio in the future. Illyrio will probably die off-page. However, Young Griff might go the same way as Robert. After a successful campaign to regain his lands, he will take a small wound. That wound will fester. He will die in agony, hallucinating, of wound fever. But what do you think? Do you agree that Robert and Illyrio have a lot in common? Almost too much in common? Has George R.R. Martin been fruit picking again from his favourite series? Or is it just a coincidence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, because it's the only way the tyrannical king that is the YouTube algorithm notices me. Until next time, you can subscribe and watch all my other Accursed King content and the Song of Ice and Fire content. Until next time, don't start any Blackfyre rebellions. Bye!